relevant, reliable, and researched. This is Experts on Call, the show focused on delivering leading-edge news and information on today's most beneficial products and services. This is Experts on Call on AM 650.
And we're back to talk about Strata, Experts on Call. I'm Tony Giaventu, your host. We have from Victoria with us on the radio, Jack Boomer from the Heart and Stroke Foundation and the BC Lung Association. Welcome, Jack.
Thanks, Tony.
And June is Smoke-Free Housing Month, so we are looking towards communities that are going to be developing plans as to how they're going to target basically smoke-free living environments in their buildings. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Well, what we have decided to do is we wanted to highlight the fact that most British Columbians are protected in the workplace and wherever they are from secondhand smoke. But when they go to their home, their castle, especially as people are living in more multi-unit dwellings and living closer together, that they are not necessarily protected from secondhand smoke. And what we want to do is we want to highlight the fact that there are ways that people who live in condos or rentals or in apartments, that there are things that can be done to create smoke-free environments that are very positive and very easy to address the problem up front.
So you mentioned something about when they go home and they're in their castle, but we all know that when you live in a strata, your home is not your castle. And so one of the challenges that we have is how do we accommodate everybody's needs in a strata? So, just because you are a smoker or a non-smoker or you have activities that go in your unit doesn't give you the right to basically impose those conditions on other dwellings. And whether it's in a rental building or a condo building, it's communal living. So there are going to be some pretty interesting boundaries that people cross here.
Absolutely, and that's what we find, especially as the weather is getting nicer. People are opening up their windows, they go onto their patios or their decks, and oftentimes what happens is when they go out onto their patio or deck, if their neighbor is addicted to tobacco or nicotine, they will go out onto their deck and they will smoke. And as a result of that smoke will travel into the neighbor's unit. And for people who have a variety of health issues or just find it a darn right nuisance, we get calls to say, what is it that we can do? And the great thing that people can do is that they can actually upfront, a landlord can upfront say no smoking in the unit as well as no smoking on patios or balconies. If you're a strata, you can set bylaws, put bylaws in place that will prohibit smoking in the unit as well as on the balconies, even on the general property if you wanted to go that far. And we're delighted that a number of places across BC are taking those very positive steps.
So you mentioned one thing about a strata adopting a bylaw that prohibits smoking in essentially all common areas, but as well as within strata lots. So how does a strata corporation accommodate an individual who is an addicted smoker, who has an addiction? Does the strata corporation have the right to impose this on an individual who's lived in the building for the last 25 years?
Well, the interesting thing about that is that there's sort of two sides of the equation. There's the equation of, yes, indeed, the individual is addicted to nicotine, and likely that individual wants to quit smoking. We know that upwards of 70% of British Columbians want to quit smoking at any one time, and that when you make it harder for people to smoke, they will increase their quit attempts and quit. But that's not what today's segment is about. What it is about is that we know that secondhand smoke is harmful. It's harmful for people who breathe it. And so the individual who smokes, it's not about castigating or criticizing the smoker. It's saying we need to control where that person smokes, that they need to go outside, go far enough away from the buildings that it's not causing a nuisance for their neighbors.
So there is a website, smokefreehousingbc.ca. There is a registry of properties now that are actually have adopted smoke-free policies and smoke-free housing. Is there a set of guidelines or some directions of how multifamily communities can start developing smoke-free policies on the website?
Yes, indeed. On the smokefreehousingbc.ca website, what we have is we have a toolkit. And the toolkit, when people get to the website, there's something for tenants, there's something for strata corporations, there's something for landlords. And you can go into whichever section is most appropriate for you when you get there. And within that, for stratas as well as for rentals, there are how-to guidelines how to move forward to create a smoke-free environment, how to create smoke-free bylaws. And, one of the great things is people can go to the condominium homeowners association as well and get some advice if they want to change their bylaws. And this is one of the things that people can do to do that.
Yeah, exactly. The CHOA website has a number of guides on smoking and smoke-free housing. We invite everyone to look at those, and certainly when you're adopting bylaws that are going to be restricting use of activities within strata lots, it's important also for strata corporations to get some legal advice on the adoption and the amendment to those bylaws, so that they're not going to be crossing boundaries that may otherwise create some other kind of risks for the strata. Jack, any other messages? We're just about out of time, and thank you very much for joining us.
Well, I think the biggest message would be to encourage people to go to the website to get support, because there are things that can be done, and that this is a long-term proposition. So thank you very much, Tony.
Jack Boomer from the Heart and Stroke Foundation of BC and the BC Lung Association. Their website again is smokefreehousingbc.ca. June is Smoke-Free Housing Month. Thank you for joining our show. Thank you, Jack. And thanks, Dan and Dave from Remdel Painting. And we encourage everybody to get their buildings maintained this summer. I'm Tony Gioventu, your host. Thank you for listening.